was a time where I actually had to hide my notebooks in my car, and I would pull over on the side of the road and write, because I had to write whether or not anybody would ever see it. And so it's partly, I think, a rebellion from feeling like there are things we're not supposed to say, because those are the things that we need to talk about. So this conversation with Travis this week, and I said, aren't there some things that you shouldn't be seeing? He said, you know what? If you're uncomfortable writing it, that's what people are going to relate to.
Thank you all for coming out today. I know that there's still some road closures and a lot of grief still in the community, and I think it's wonderful that we can gather and both express that and hopefully feel some joy through poetry as well. And for those that don't know me, my name's Nathan Hassall, current poet laureate of Malibu. I get sheepish at positive affirmation from others. So the format of the day is we start with our feature, who I will introduce shortly, who will give us a reading, and then we'll have a Q&A. I will ask 3 or 4 questions, and then I'll open it up to everyone else. Okay, so today we have a very special guest who I've known for 4 or 5 years now. It might be longer than that. I think you were here when Ellen was Poet Laureate reading, so it's wonderful to have her back. Her name is Cynthia Good. She's an award-winning poet, journalist, and former TV news anchor, and the author of 8 books, including 2 poetry collections, the chapbook, What We Do With Our Hands, and the recently released In the Thought of Day. This is an excellent book, and you're going to hear some poems from that. Her poems have appeared or are forthcoming in numerous acclaimed publications, from Book of Matches to Tupelo Quarterly and Waxing and Waning, and more. An MFA graduate from NYU, Cynthia lives in Santa Monica and Mexico with her Havanese dog, Zuni. Please welcome to the podium, Cynthia Good.
Thank you, Nathan. It's so good to be here. This is my favorite poetry community, and it's like emotional to be with you guys again. I thought I was very clever, and that I would come from Santa Monica and sneak down PCH and show them the beautiful collateral creative that Nathan had put together for the poetry reading, and say, yeah, I don't have an official pass, but I'm going. And of course, they said, okay, we'll let you through. And I drove mile after mile after mile, all the way from Santa Monica here to see Devastation. It was not the right decision, because I cried most of the way here. And I usually pretty tough, but wow, I'm so grateful to have poetry in this day and age with all the craziness in the world. And what I thought I would do today is read, and you may hear some themes, but I thought if you will allow me, I would read some new work as well as some of the poems from this new collection. And I will. And I'll just jump right into it by reading this new one called Teaching My Lover to Swim. I promise not to throw him in the deep end with the 6-year-olds. I show him the breaststroke standing in a shallow pool on a Monday. He lost our bet on the World Series, and I won the chance to teach him to swim. After all, who can't swim at 60? Once underwater, his feet sink. Sober 20 years, he knows what it is to sink. We are practicing, still holding onto the edge. Kick harder, I yell, as he grips the concrete. He knows what it is to slip. I think as he rockets himself forward, freestyle for a few feet before being enveloped by an avalanche of water. So much effort. He decides I should teach him to kick like a frog. So I do. The fact is, I'm no swim teacher. My only training at age 2 when my father pitched me in. So here we are, two people who have no idea what they're doing, reinventing something that humans have done for more than 100,000 years. We try the side stroke. He gets halfway across and bumps into the side. I haven't taught him to watch out. I haven't taught him to breathe. I cannot keep another person from drowning. I tell him to open his eyes, the air thick with chlorine. He gasps for breath when his face comes up. The face I have traced with my hands and held against my cheek. Breathe, damn it, I want to scream. I laugh, wanting to cry, as he teaches me to begin again. So, I'm sure you guys have all been writing, perfect timing. I'm sure you guys have all been writing fire poems. I'm like we're just pouring out these fire poems. And today we have a little fundraiser. I'm not sure if everybody knows, for a dear friend and a Malibu poet named Karen, who just walked in the door. And so I dedicate this to her. And it's called Given Random Things on Fire. And yesterday I heard from Blue Mountain Review that it was accepted for publication.
Great. Nice.
Oh. Welcome. Given Random Things on Fire. I smacked the outdoor love seat to get rid of the dust and ash. I slammed my fists into the cushion to rid it of dirt and grime, to lash back the only way I could against flames swallowing my hometown, as if brushing away the taste of soot and scent of embers could rehoist walls and roofs, unburn my friend's curtains, her cupboards and paintings and family photos, her closet of brooms and winter coats, her old school answering machine continuing to answer for days after her house in cinders. I am still here in this shard of sunlight, while 3 miles away cars and gardens and gemstones are burning back to coal, while I pound pillows, sift rising over my mouth and eyes as my body silhouettes in golden flames blossoming behind me. So here is one from the book, back to the book. Can you hear? Should I speak louder? Okay, let me know if I can. This is called Recuerdo, and Recuerdo, all you need to know, which you probably do, means to remember in Spanish, and a lot of the poems in this book are written from Mexico. But I think it's kind of a theme, a theme of like what we hold on to and what we can't. So, Recuerdo. Not the blooming plumeria reflecting off the water, the full moon this morning falling out of the sky. Not my hair, or maybe some. Not my strong muscles or breasts, smooth skin, youthful and midlife beauty. Not even my breath or this house, its walls, this car, the awesome tires, plants in the garden that I water and trim. But I can keep the ocean and the sky, the dirt and air and space between my cells. But not the whales, not the bats that bolt from Mexico in the winter. I can keep the animal part of me, sternum, scapula, clavicle, the part that notices bits of clouds gathering together like lace in the northern sky, waiting to resolve. The chance to rest on a featherless pillow and nap on the veranda Friday at noon. The part that insists on standing in the shade to escape the heat, or rifling through the calendar, growing thinner in my fingers as the dog races around with her blue ball, its light flashing like an ambulance. Mm-hmm. So here's another new poem, and there was a publication, Silver Birch Press, and they were asking for poems that have to do with your mom. So I sent them this, and I think it was already published, yes, because I posted it. So it's another new poem. It's called My Mother is Dead. My mother is dead. My mother, the painter, is dead, and so are the lovers in her painting. The pink curled limbs spilling around one another. They never really lived. My mother in the painting with the man she loved lived. My buried mother, the bulldozed home, the boarded up bar do not define me. They are not inside my bones. They do not belong to me any more than the glass, the dog, this rubble, these boys, or the roses that bloom at night. I built my home of ember and ash that burned. The chance to live outside the museum in my head, outside the cave where I found my mother drenched in her river. She said, "No man will love you if you're fat. All men will leave you for a blonde. You can't have a career and a husband." On the 5th day, we knew my mother would never see the East River, or the clothes I packed in her shoulder bag, would never show me how she looked in the wig that sat on the windowsill. I imagined my mother praying there too, our heads bowed, hands holding a match or a book, her face flickering in the dim, forgiving light. "How dare you," she used to yell, shoving dishes toward me across the table when I didn't finish the tuna fish sandwich. I learned what it is to sprint around embers in searing heat, fire snapping like popcorn, learned to stop writing poems about my dead mother. So I've been reading in different places with the book launch, and I've been reading a lot with some amazing poets, Kim Adenizio and Dorian Lex, and they bring their book and they're like, "I think I'll read this one. I think I'll," and me, I've got like all these, stickies, and because there were specific things that I wanted to read to you guys. So, okay, so that was about the mother, so I'll read one about my father that's in this book as well. It's called My Father's Smoke, and Milton remembers my father, so that's nice. Someone who does. My father's smoke. There was the crinkling cellophane, then pulling the gold strip to open the 5 packs he puffed daily. Did it relax him, exhaling a stylish toke, or did it burn him as he lit up each morning before flipping on the light? I was addicted to his balm of Salem menthol, masking everything bad. Stuffy bedrooms, stench of diesel fuel and seasickness, the shouts from the kitchen. I would stub out his cigarette decades before we suspected emphysema. The only time I recall him yelling at me. I savor the aroma, even now, all of him in the ocean. If someone lights up, I inch to get closer. There's one more short one along those lines, and then I think I've just got a few more. My father's ashes. I have his brown eyes and his dark skin. I do not have his certainty, his calm demeanor in crisis, his thin legs. I have his ashes in my hands, fine like dust, except for the pieces of bone we give back to the sea. Okay, so here's another new poem. This is very new, but anyway, we'll see how this goes. It's called Why Dating Someone Who's Never Been Married is a Red Flag. When you touched him, his face took on the expression of a person immersed in a beautiful piece of music. Philip Glass, String Quartet No. 2, cello and violin rising and falling like a rainstorm. But he didn't know to bring you coffee, or make the bed, or stay for breakfast. I wish I didn't have to leave, he said, opting to remain in his wilderness. Intimacy is a finger slammed in a door. So you stayed with the dog who slept on a red chair. You stayed with the potted palm leaves, translucent in early light. The refrigerator making that sound, and crumbs from the banana bread, which only you enjoyed. Okay, since you like that one, how are we doing on time?
You good? You got time.
Okay, since you like that one. Here's another new one, also from the romantic side. It's called Insomnia in Rome. On the roof, giant seagulls cried, like desperate men aiming to fight. or a couple in the throes of making love. And in all that racket, we lay together, listening, your skin glinting like pearl in the quarter light, the sky dissolving into watercolor red, the streets sea-sharp grunt below, a truck scraping leaves hanging from branches as we lolled above the slender thoroughfare. Windows gaping, curtains tall, blowing like sails, caught in an insistent breeze. Somebody's wash on the line, each other's salt on our lips. Okay, so I have two more for you. I can't find it. So I'm just going to read this one. You know, we had the lunar eclipse the night before last, right? So this is about a relationship that a person has with the moon. It's called Mad at the Moon. Loitering and bald, pockmarked, illiterate, dressed in stones, distant, strange, always alone, 240,000 miles off, no one wants to hang out with the moon. You can't breathe there. Worthless moon, invisible by day, then using someone else's light. Irrelevant and old, there is no point. It just hovers there, no use to anyone. It doesn't sing or take out the trash. It has never read Shakespeare or changed a tire. If I could, I would rip it out of the sky. It only stood there glowering the night my father put metal to his mouth. Silent again, it observed through a window when my mother fell, watching, doing nothing, static and stuck. The moon can't get off its ass, like now, glistering the water with foolish sparks of light. Oh, and the final one is, you know when you're trying to sleep, but your mind is just racing? I don't know, have you ever had?
Oh, no, you never felt that.
Never experienced it.
Well, then you won't relate to this one. It's called Voices in My Head While Trying to Sleep, Sunday night. Got to call Dr. W in the morning for a refill. Where's that half Ambien? Up, look for but don't find half Ambien. Down, need to call N tomorrow, wondering if she's still avoiding me. Need to call V, is she avoiding me? Up, check phone messages. Down, remember not to worry about the outcome. Like getting caught and lost tonight, driving home without glasses under shadows of huge trees, big as mountains, a smattering of moonlight, a tunnel of monsters around me. Up, why is the dog at the bottom of the bed? Down, the bookshelf fits perfectly on the other wall. Got to stop the times while I'm out of town. Up, midnight. Down, I've got to check on D to see if she's still a wreck like S who gets drunk and sleeps with random men. Up, wonder, am I doing that too, but with one random man? Down, got to order vibrator. Up, drag dog closer, growls, crawls back to the bottom of the bed. Down, the vibrator my friend suggested is $100. I'm worth it. You can't have the life that's waiting for you if you keep living the life you have. Just Campbell said that, I think. I am a fuck up. I am doing a good job. Up, 2:30 a.m., pull the dog closer, she growls. Apply chapstick, down, damn it. Take 5 deep breaths, fill stomach first. On the 5th, let the air drift out of mouth. Try to imagine God holding me. Down, remember step 11, pray only for the knowledge of God's will. Try to stop trying. Up, adjust pillow, down. Fuck, it's too late to get a good night's sleep. I wish it was morning so I could shut off my fucking brain. Up, wait, I love you, brain. Thank you, brain. Down, the dog is now sleeping against my side. Pink streaks the sky. Street lights flicker off. Birds quiet the crickets. And the star darkness climbs under a blanket of growing light. I can't wait to you guys read. I told Anne, this is why I came. So I'm really excited. Open mind. Thank you for listening.
There's one more hand for Cynthia Good. think all may agree, but there's a few words sprung to mind as you were reading. There's vibrancy, shimmering. You are so rhythmic in how you speak. And I know you were a news anchor, and I was wondering how that perhaps prepared you for poetry performances later in life.
Poetry performances. I like the way words feel in your mouth. And I dance jazz, that's like my thing. Rather, I am not good at pickleball, but it's the music and the sound, and I think that's part of it. Certainly I'm comfortable speaking, which is added benefit, but I do remember the one big fight I had during my MFA program was with Robin Coast-Lewis. She's a Guggenheim Fellow. She's really great. Do you know her? Yes, so you're not surprised.
Tell more.
Yeah, so I think she teaches at USC, and she said, let me disabuse you of your journalistic expertise. Her point being, and I know it's not exactly what you're asking, but she said, poetry is not journalism. It's not, yes, there are a lot of those things that are, actually happened, but it is not entirely nonfiction and autobiographical. And so, in a way, that experience has hurt me, I think, as a poet, to try to step aside for that and from that and focus on, the art and the words. But definitely reading poetry is really fun, and I think I'm more comfortable because of that experience.
Yeah. I know you said when you were up there, recently, obviously, we've been through more fires, and you said that they have been pouring out of you. And I was wondering how your relationship changes or your understanding changes through the process of writing poems about the fires or fire.
Yeah, I think a lot of times when I write, and you guys, maybe a lot of you have the same experience, you go into it thinking it's about one thing and you get halfway through and it's about something else. And it's just been, I've been very grateful to have poetry and to be able to write about, what we see and what we experience, and like poems about survivor's guilt. And it's like all this stuff that I just maybe never really thought about before, makes me think differently and see things differently.
I noticed in Requader you end on the image, her blue, I can't even see it, her blue ball. It's like flashing like an ambulance. And I noticed you did this a few times, sometimes with like tactile sense and sometimes with a visual image. But what's the strength of ending a poem on an image like that?
Yeah, I think oftentimes I don't do that, and then I want to end the poem with something that maybe will be memorable. And to me, there's really nothing more memorable than a stark image like that. So oftentimes that happens in the editing process. I may go back and move things around so I can end on an image.
This will be my last question. I know that you came into writing poetry more seriously later in your life. What made you decide that you wanted to do that?
That's do you want the long or short version?
Both.
Both, okay, that's how much time you got. No, I mean, I was a journalist, and I did the news, and I launched a couple magazines, and it was late. It was like 2015, I guess, when, we were bombarded by all this political conversation and arguing, and people were screaming, and, the media, they want you to watch. So the more flagrant and loud, the ratings go up. And at the time, I was, ending a part of my life, ending a very long marriage. My mother was dying. My kids had just left home to go to college. And, I felt like the world was kind of falling down around me, and there was all this BS in the mainstream media, and I really thought I was going crazy. And I did a poetry workshop in Atlanta. Mimi Tucker, I don't know if you guys know her, she's amazing. And then I had done a poetry workshop in Napa, and everyone was talking about the fact that sometimes there are no words, And you have at your disposal an entire language. And I thought, oh my gosh, I'm not crazy. I just need my language. And it was just so amazing to me that I found this gift of an entire language that had been given to me. And then I went back and got my MFA. And, I said to my youngest son, I got into this program. I applied to a bunch of them. And I said, I'm really nervous because, these people know what they're doing. And he said, Mom, you've been doing this your whole life, and I literally have hundreds and hundreds, this is Nathan said, so anyway, that's how I came to poetry.
My last question is, has your communication, thank you, that's used to the music. Has your communication verbally changed for the better through poetry?
I hope so, a little bit. I mean, I loved words, and it just gave me an opportunity to be more mindful of them. Oh, there's a great dictionary I discovered, maybe you know of it, called the Dictionary of Obscure Sorrows. So to be able to dive into language is really fun. Do you know that one?
Oh, it's just hysterical to me.
I mean, the words, and it's all based on etymology and putting words together and from different languages and words for things that there is no word for in the English language. So I think absolutely.
Okay, great. I'm going to leave you with a microphone because we're going to open it up to the floor. Does anyone have any questions for Cynthia?
I'll give a comment just to start it off, because your use of language and images and the way you bring us in and the way you paint the picture is really wonderful, Cynthia. I'm so glad that you made that turn in your career. So thank you. And I don't have a question except for just keep on going.
So your inspiration for writing, you say you write all the time. Do you find more inspiration when you read other poets? Do you have favorite poets you'd like to tell us about? Because I always love to hear who you're reading and whether or not when you read a poem that you love, it opens something in you, or if you just have your sources of inspiration can come anywhere.
Yeah, I think for me, the inspiration is everywhere. It's all around me, everything I see and experience. And absolutely, if I'm I'm not being inspired, then all I have to do is read and something comes to mind. And I always put, I've got Sylvia Plath and, Bishop and Adrienne Rich, and those are some of my favorites. And I'm reading Charles Bukowski is on my bedside table now, and I subscribe. There are all these things, as you know, that we can subscribe to, a poem a day, and I get to read those and listen to those, and always inspired. In fact, the swimming poem, there was a poem, I think it was Poem a Day, and Marcus, maybe you remember that one, because you're like, oh, I just read a poem about swimming, and it was about a child, swimming. I thought, oh my God, I've got a swim poem in me. So, yeah, definitely. Bridget.
Do you find that your emotions are what are inspiring you to write?
Yeah, sometimes. I mean, I write a lot of things, and there's an editor that I work with, Travis Denton, who runs Poetry at Georgia Tech, who's really great. And I had this conversation with him last week, and I said, maybe some of this stuff shouldn't be discussed. I actually sent him about 10 poems that I had been hiding, because this is intense emotional stuff and personal, and and where I come from is there was a time in this marriage and throughout my life as a woman or whatever, I felt like I couldn't say a lot of things. There were things that just shouldn't be said. And there was a time where I actually had to hide my notebooks in my car. And I would pull over on the side of the road and write, because I had to write, whether or not anybody would ever see it. And so it's partly, I think, a rebellion from feeling like there are things we're not supposed to say, because those are the things that we need to talk about. So this conversation with Travis this week, we had this whole conversation. He's like, wow, these new poems are good. I'm like, oh God. And I said, aren't there some things that you shouldn't be seeing? He said, you know what? If you're uncomfortable writing it, that's what people are going to relate to. That's his perspective. We'll see.
Maybe one more.
Hey, do you write every day, or do you have a particular time of day that you feel compelled that you should write, even if you don't have the feelings?
This is Milton's shoe, and the last time I saw Milton, we were 18 years old, graduating from high school in the Pacific Palisades, and he reached out to me to see how I was after the fires. On a good day, I like to write every day if I can. My favorite thing is to get up early in the morning and take my dog to a coffee shop on Main Street and to write. Like, that's how I live every day. And I probably write, 5 out of 7 days. And I don't write because I have to or I'm supposed to. I mean, I write because I have to. I think of it as a smoking habit a little bit.
Hopefully it's better for you than that.
I don't know. Thanks, everybody. Great questions.
Quick question. So,
Yeah, good.
what is your method when you have a flash of inspiration? Do you send yourself a text immediately? Do you have that situation where, oh, I'll never forget that? I'll never forget that. And then half hour later, how did I say that in my mind? So, what's your method when you have flashes of inspiration? How you might guard it?
It never comes back. At least for me, it never comes back. And hopefully I don't too often write on a notepad while driving, because I do old school. I write everything down. But and I have every single purse, everywhere there's one of these. They're all over the place. It's like, cockroaches or something. You can't get rid of them. And I have to write it down. And it may stay in here for years. And maybe sometime I'll go back and say, wow, that was like from 5 years ago. But yeah, I just try to write it down because I lose it if I don't. And in the middle of the night, I'll lose it unless I get up.
You just paper mostly. You get it on
I do.
Okay.
Pen and paper. Old school.
Thank you. I hope you write down the like cockroaches if that was. We do have it recorded at least, so there's a memory of that. Can you just lastly tell us about the books you have there, how much they cost, and how we can pay you?
Oh, there is a Venmo somewhere. And don't think I brought it, but I have one on my phone, and it's like, I think we said 10 for the chapbook and 20 for the In a Thought Day, or whatever you can contribute.
Okay, that's great. Cynthia Good, thank you very much. You can purchase her books during the break.
Thank you, Cynthia.
Thank you. All right, why don't we take about 10 minutes? You can buy the books. I'm sure Cynthia will sign them. And if you haven't already, you can sign up for the open mic. And you can buy books from the Friends of the Library at the back for $1. They help fund events and programs like this one you're at right now.
That's fun.
Just so like